McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions, Real Talk Radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
It's kind of like the story that keeps giving, doesn't it? RTE. And it's probably the first time ever RTE have been the top story on their own news for what? It must be nearly 4 days. Is it 4 days now? 4 days. Consistent. Well, since last Wednesday, I think. Was it Thursday? Thursday. It all kicked off, and the latest star to weigh in, of course, is Miriam O'Callaghan, who said she is receiving the €263,500 printed in the papers and printed in the public record. Claire Byrne got the ball rolling today by saying she's getting 251, which is 200 for her radio show, and she also said she got money for a quiz show she did, which is 25,000. And she did admit that seems like a lot of money for one show, but she said that's open, to whatever you feel about it yourself. That's just the way it is. There's a whole question as to whether they're being overpaid. Joe Duffy, of course, got involved as well. And he admitted how much he got. Well, it's not that they have to admit it. It's already on public record. Joe Duffy gets 300,000 for the radio show and 51,000 for other TV projects, including The Meaning of Life and other TV commitments he has. There's still a few more to come out, I suppose. Now, by the way, there is no obligation for them to clarify it. But I think at a time like this, a crisis like this, they probably should clarify it for full transparency. Because it is on public record and you are entitled to find out how much it is. You can go to the RTE website, for example, and find out exactly how much it is. Director General of RTE, Dee Forbes, has resigned forthwith, and not too happy, by the way, with the way she's been treated by staff or by executives in RTE. And she's taken a few with her because she said other people knew about this, other executives knew about this, and obviously a financial controller would have known about it as well because somebody had to pay it. So, in case you've been buried for the last 4 days and you don't know what this is all about, well, it turns out Ryan Tubridy got a total payment of $345,000 more than his published salary between 2017 and 2022. So, see, here's the problem. When Ryan took a pay cut, like everybody else, and Dee Forbes went on record back 3 or 4 years ago to say because of the RTE crisis, well, RTE were in crisis anyway because they were losing money hand over fist, there was pay cuts all around for everybody, right from the bottom to the top. Depending on what you earned, a different amount of pay cut. Ryan Tubridy got a pay cut just like everybody else. But did he really get a pay cut? He says he did. But realistically, he didn't because he got a side deal which made up his wages. So while everybody else took the cut, he didn't really take it. Their argument was, we didn't want to lose him. I don't think there was a suggestion Ryan was going to go. He did a couple of fill-ins for Graham Norton in the BBC. I don't think it was a big threat. I don't think he was going to go any minute. He had a 10-year contract with the Late Late Show anyway. So realistically, he probably wasn't going anywhere. So was it necessary? Probably not. So Ryan Tubridy had initially come out and said, this is RTE's problem, not mine. Then the following day, after making that statement, which if he had got good advice from PR company, he probably wouldn't have made that statement. Because the next day made him look a bit foolish because then he came out and said, well, actually, yeah, I do bear some responsibility. I should have noticed that it wasn't on public record and I do apologise for that. So he has now apologised. The thing is, do you accept his apology? A lot of people watched him on the Late Late Show, particularly during COVID when everybody took a pay hit. And he did the whole thing, that he talked about the fact that we're all losing money and losing our jobs and people are worried about losing money and losing their wages and everything else. And the line came out, we're all in this together. Well, it seems we weren't all in this together, after all, because Ryan's pocket wasn't really affected by it. Now, look, don't get me wrong. People have said to me on Twitter and other places, oh, you wouldn't refuse it, Niall, if you were offered it. You're actually right. I wouldn't have refused it. Of course not. But if I was taking taxpayers' money, I would make sure it was all accountable. And, if it wasn't... And look, it's printed every year in the paper because every year on this show and other talk shows around the country, we all have a go at RTE wages saying how extortionate they are and are they worth it. So it's nationally printed. He would have noticed that's not the amount of money I get. I get 70 grand more than that. And he should have corrected the record for his own sake. But he failed to do that. That's Ryan's biggest problem. Can he come back to radio now? Maybe not till the Oireachtas have finished dealing with the whole situation. But I want to know, have you lost faith in RTE? Have you lost trust in RTE? Some people said to me today they wouldn't even pay the television licence anymore. They've lost so much faith or trust in RTE. Look, let's not take it out on all the staff. Because I think if Ryan Tubridy walked into the canteen tomorrow, remember, he wouldn't be the most popular guy in the canteen because people who worked around him all took a pay cut. Meanwhile, he didn't, and they didn't know about that. So he wouldn't be the most popular person there at the moment. And by the way, I don't want to judge Ryan. I've met him on a couple of occasions. He's a really genuine, nice guy. He made a big mistake. And let's see, will the public forgive him? I want to know, do you have faith in RTE? Is it fit for purpose? Let me know what you think. The number, as usual, 087 188 0008. That's 087 188 0008. Former RT correspondent for 25 years. TV News, finished 2 years ago. This week, by the way, and works in community development in Roscommon now, is Kieran Mullooly. Kieran, good afternoon to you. Or good evening.
Niall, good evening, Niall. How are you?
How are you doing, Kieran? This is just the story that keeps giving, Kieran.
Yeah, it's been an amazing few days now. It's just an extraordinary few days. A sad time, really, because, you know, as I say, I worked in RTE over 25 years. I can tell you I worked with a lot more people who were paid less than €100,000 than I worked with people who were paid over that fee. I mean, the vast majority of my colleagues were paid anything from 30 to 40, 50,000 euro for a job they did in the newsroom, and a job I might say they did well. And that's the only good thing about what's happened in the last few days. I think the newsroom is still doing a good job because they're asking the key questions. And the questions that have to be asked about this incredible behaviour that we've only learned about since last Thursday, the extraordinary activities that were going on behind our scene, and as you say yourself, a betrayal of trust, not just for the licence payer and the public, but for the staff as well in there.
It is sad to think that the side deal or secret deal or slush fund or whatever you want to call it, I've heard numerous words being thrown around over the last 2 or 3 days, but that side deal was worth probably twice the salary of some of the people you worked with. And for those, there's going to be a bad taste in their mouth. Where do you think, firstly, this leaves Ryan Tubridy? Do you think he can walk back in and be trusted again? When I say be trusted, look, I don't want to take away from the man's character. Mind you, he has apologised himself, so he has obviously admits that he bears some responsibility for not making it public. But do you think he can walk back in there and people will just go, okay, live and let live, let's move on?
Well, let me talk about the timing of this for starters. When I left 2 years ago, Niall, the then head of news, John Williams, was looking for savings of €2 million. Now, this is the year when Ryan Tubridy was paid another €75,000. At that point, RTE were looking for vacancies. They offered voluntary redundancy packages.
I remember them, yes.
They were reducing facilities. They were actually laying off freelancers who had made quite a good living from them were no longer being used. And they were not replacing staff who were leaving as well. Camera crews, including my own up in the Midlands, had not been replaced for a period of time. All of these things were taken to hurt. The problem is for Ryan Tubridy, and you know, I'm like yourself, I've only met him a few times. I admire the work he's done in broadcasting. But the problem for Ryan Tubridy is in the statement that Dee Forbes issued this morning, because she explains again the background to this barter account and the background whereby an agreement was made that, you know, this corporate advertiser, this supporter would pay the €75,000 that was needed to go to Ryan Tubridy and his agent, and that only happened for 1 year. And you may remember that this was the time of COVID. You know, RTE staff remember this very well because now a considerable amount of them were furloughed during COVID.
Yes.
Significant, because RTE said they couldn't raise the usual finance they could from corporate. But what we learned this morning was that despite this situation that evolved, and we can't blame Dee Forbes for that because of what happened during COVID, despite that situation, she said this morning that the invoices came in from presumably Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly seeking their payment for the other two €75,000. And that was the issue which led to the decision taken by persons of people we don't know inside there at the moment.
In other words, you would have imagined that the two of them would have had an understanding that RTE were in a very difficult situation and that maybe that side deal wasn't an option, you know, during that particular very difficult time in RTE financially. And the fact that he's on reasonably good money anyway, you know, that he might have thought to himself, well, maybe it's not right to be doing this.
Listen, at the end of the day, Noel Kelly is there to represent the person who pays him. He's an agent. He's like a football agent to many degrees. He's there to get the best deal he can get. But the question will have to be asked, perhaps more so of Ryan Tubridy, that when it became obvious to him that because of COVID, he was not going to be able to do the additional work that may or may not have been necessary in relation to the deal. Perhaps at that point in time, there was a case for simply admitting or coming forward in those discussions with Dee Forbes, which she said she had with Noel at that point, and accepting that the funds were not raised, the funds were not available from a third party, from a corporate party, and instead of pursuing the invoices, which were in turn paid from mainstream RTE funding that was available, and funding that could have gone to retaining freelance staff, retaining facilities, and perhaps helping people on a lot less than €100,000 who are working in the organisation.
I mean, I watched David McCullough the other night interview the Deputy General of RTE, sitting there in his cardigan, and I know Terry Prone wrote about it today in the Irish Examiner. She said it was a very awkward interview, and it was because, of course, he's interviewing his own boss and quizzing his own boss. And there was something too uncomfortable about it because he kept referring to David McCullough as David constantly all the time. In other words, we're mates, we know each other. And it's difficult. I understand you in the newsroom would understand that. It's difficult, I suppose, to quiz your own colleague live on television on 6-1 News for the top story of the day, where you're supposed to be challenging and remaining impartial, and that must have been very difficult. But in fairness to David, he did a good job. And when I watched it, I said to myself, I know in that man's mind, and in the minds of most people in RTE News, they're thinking the same as everybody else. Why weren't we told about this? Why weren't we offered something? Why were we all taking a pay cut when this man was earning more than we were and retaining that, and not only retaining it but getting extra money realistically?
Yeah, I mean, you can understand the difficult position facing staff are being put in at the moment. Claire Byrne began her programme this morning with a statement about her salary in the first instance, and then a very clear statement about her doing her job well. And that's one of the positive things I have noticed from Claire Byrne this morning and from David McCullough's performance before the weekend when he interviewed the chairperson of the RTE board, Siún Ní Raghallaigh.
Yes.
The professionalism of RTE staff is standing out here. The absolute integrity of the presenters was very clear this morning with Claire Byrne, was very clear with David McCullough, and every other broadcast I have seen. They are going to ask the hard questions here. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
RTE staff are going to do what what we all would love to see now. Let's be frank about it. We'd like to see the RTE Investigates team getting stuck in this.
Well,
can they?
I do believe Primetime probably will do a piece on it. But in saying that, we all know that Dee Forbes is gone. She's now resigned, which means she has no obligation legally to go to the Oireachtas on Wednesday, although the Taoiseach and Micheál Martin have both said that she should go to answer all those questions. Firstly, do you think she'll appear? I mean, you'll know her better than I do, or the type of person she might be.
Well, we have to take her statement at first hand, I suppose, in the first instance. If she's in poor health as a result of what's happened in the last few days, I think clearly she may decide not to attend. She's going to make that decision herself. I think one more interesting aspect of her statement this morning was the fact that she referred to the people in the legal and financial areas in RTE who were aware of what went on with regard to the deal which eventually was done.
So she wasn't the only one who signed off on this. Yes, there was other people who signed off on it.
And in those circumstances, Niall, I think the question would have to be asked. I'm sure it is already by members of the Dáil Public Accounts or Oireachtas Public Accounts Committee. Can we have these people, if they still work for RTE and they're in the financial and legal area, can we have these people named, and can we call them before the committees this week? And
do you think Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly will be called before the Oireachtas as well, or should they be?
The thing about Ryan Tubridy is, and I think this is a strong possibility, knowing him from working with him, I think Ryan Tubridy eventually will welcome the opportunity to come before a television camera or a presenter or another presenter in a fair situation and actually face questions on this. I think he may well have to do it in the end. It may well be a thing that he may have to do it in terms of his own career. But I think Ryan Tubridy will do this, and I think the public will listen to him, and I think the public will try and work out themselves how aware he was of what was going on, because he's apologised for not asking questions
Kieran, to be fair, he would have been fully aware of what was going on, because you wouldn't have an agent sign a deal behind your back or have no idea how that extra €75,000 was coming about on a yearly basis. So he would have been fully aware of it. He had to have been.
Well, we heard this morning, or we heard this afternoon, of the way RTE salaries were being calculated. We've heard of at least two presenters who had a combination of radio and television work. I wouldn't be surprised in the coming days if we hear of some of the other people in the top 10 list of salaries who similarly had arrangements of this nature, perhaps from more than two different media. And in those circumstances, I genuinely believe that Ryan Tubridy paid his agent to get the best deal he could get, and at the end of the day, I'm not saying he's naive, but I genuinely believe he did. I genuinely believe he didn't understand the seriousness of what was going on. Because his second statement was so different, as you saw,
to his first statement. The first statement was a kind of knee-jerk reaction, and Terry Prone today, when we spoke to her, said that he should probably, if she was advising him, she would have told him not to put out that first statement. Wait and see what the damage is first, and then put out a statement. It'll take at least 24 hours to see the full the damage. But going forward for RTE now, I mean, look, this is not the first time RTE has been embroiled in some sort of mess, one way or another. I mean, it just seems to be badly run, the organisation itself. Now there's questions, of course, being asked about, the pay that the top 10 get. Is it too much money? Considering we're a small population, it's a small public service broadcaster in the big scheme of things. When you look at the BBC or, some of the big CNN in America or whatever it happens to be. So realistically, you can't expect presenters to get the same amount of money. I mean, the talk now is, and Dee Forbes was asked about this 3 years ago, should presenters' wages be capped? They are civil servants. Well, that's provided they're not self-employed as well. I suppose most of them are. But I mean, should they be capped? Should there be a cap on the amount of money they pay out?
You have to understand where this came from now. The origin of the higher wages and higher salaries on the top 10 list goes back way, way beyond the time of Dee Forbes. Goes back, in fact,
I remember.
to the time, back to the boom.
Oh, sure, I remember Pat Kenny was on 950 at one stage or something ridiculous. You remember that?
And you have to remember, at that point, there was a time when RTE couldn't take any more television advertising. They were selling it at such a high rate. The commercial business was booming for them as well. The problem was, as we can all say now in the power of retrospective, is that after the crash, regrettably, the issue of the salaries was not addressed. We were told it was being addressed, and that's what annoys the hell out of staff in RTE. We were told this issue was being looked at. We were told they were coming down. But yes, we found out in the Director General's statement this morning that when the push came to shove on a particular issue, she personally negotiated with an agent to ensure that one of the higher paid presenters got the additional money that he was seeking. And that, I'm afraid, is going to haunt.
But we've seen that, Kieran. I mean, since far back as 2017, they were talking about cutbacks in RTE because, of course, RTE were going to the government with cap in hand looking for money. So we saw that from the very start. But yet, not long after, of course, they were going to the government with cap in hand, they were hiring, for example, and I'm not having a go, but Ray D'Arcy, who was paid $500,000 or something at the time for doing both the TV show and the radio show. Now he's had a reduced salary now. I think he's only on 405 or something like that. I don't know the exact figure. But because obviously he's not doing the TV show anymore. I think now officially he's the highest paid, as far as I know, Ray D'Arcy. I think Joe Duffy would be next, probably Claire Byrne after that. So realistically, they weren't even cutting back then. Even though they were going with cap in hand, they were still offering outrageous money to presenters. I mean, it's all well and good if you're a private company or, you're Virgin Media or you're News Talk or something like that, and you've got deep pockets like Dennis O'Brien might have. It's all right if you want to pay that kind of money. I mean, we all know Pat Kenny moved from RTE for more money from Dennis O'Brien. So, but realistically, when you have taxpayers' money and people are saying you got to reduce it, you have to reduce it. You can't be offering silly amounts of money to people.
Well, I was asked this question on radio this morning, and to give a very quick and brief answer, I think the days of those checkbooks being taken out for those amounts are over. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any broadcaster on these islands who's prepared to pay that money for any of the people on the RTE top 10 list.
No.
To be quite frank about it. The international experience would suggest as well that the money is not there, and it's not going to be there. And it's good news for the hard-working staff journalists in RTE, the people who've been paid a fraction of this, who've been crying out for support and for assistance. Many, lots of people. So many people have retired in RTE in the newsroom since I left. They haven't even been replaced. They're facing the same. They're facing the same job with a bigger workload every day in many of them, and their money has not. The wages has not been.
And that is reflective. That's reflective across the private sector as well in independent radio, and we can see that in every radio station. the numbers on people have only said to me recently, I'm thinking of getting involved in radio. And I said, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe that's not such a good plan. Because the radio industry, since I started, going back 25 years ago, I would say there's a third of the staff in independent radio now than there was then, which is quite shocking. And there's more radio stations now than there was then. When I think back, at the amount of staff that we used to have in those days, even for a talk show, you would have had 6 or 7 people. Nowadays, you're lucky to have 2 or 3. Whereas in RTE, you still have that 6 or 7. Now, I know that's probably reduced from 10 that RTE would have had some time ago. But the future of RTE, a lot of people now left with a bad taste in their mouth. And not just now. Previously, of course, they want to get rid of the TV license, change it to a broadcasting charge instead to take into consideration, Netflix and all the kind of modern ways of watching or viewing television, etc., etc. Do you think RTE's, I'm not going to say their days are numbered, but do you think they're going to have to start trimming the herd, so to speak? Are they going to have to cut back? Because let's be clear about it, there's some great programming on RTE. There is no doubt about that. The likes of Prime Time Investigates, some of the home-produced programmes are wonderful. Some of the service they give to people, I suppose, around the country that might not have a huge audience, but it's a public service. It's wonderful. There's no doubt about it. But there's some bad stuff there too that seems to just bleed money.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's going to be a very long road back for RTE. The breach of trust, the betrayal of trust is going to be an extremely difficult road back. And there are going to be changes. There are going to be changes in the management of the company. There's going to be changes in the structure of the license fee issue and the revenue. But I'll tell you one thing. I think will come true for RTE. A survey after survey has told us in recent times that the Irish public get their news from RTE and get their information from the public service there and actually respect the level of service there. That's not going to change in terms of the key core staff that's there. And the second thing with regard to it, Niall, the future, I think the right person is going in at the right time to try and start that road back. Kevin Backhurst was a very successful head of news there for over 3 years. I worked with him. I worked under him. I found him to be a man of the highest integrity. And I'll tell you one thing. He worked in public service broadcasting in the UK. He knows the pitfalls that were there. He saw them in the BBC. And I think he's a straight talker. And I think he is the person to take on the challenge. And it is a huge challenge coming in the coming weeks and months to try and rebuild the confidence.
I just hope it's not a poison chalice for him. That's all. I just hope it's not a poison chalice. The one thing that was coming across today, Kieran, and I'd caller after caller after caller on today, and a lot of them, weren't firstly happy with the coverage of COVID during COVID-19. They believed that RTE were very pro-government. A lot of them weren't happy, obviously, with the mix-up over the money. They believe they've been led astray and misled. So it's going to be very difficult to build back public confidence.
As I say, that's going to be the biggest issue. But that issue is going to be based on the betrayal of trust in terms of the incorrect information. They were lied to, as the chairperson of RTE admitted on Friday. Siún Ní Raghallaigh admitted. But I think that's going to be the core issue. I think when history is written with regard to our coverage of COVID and the COVID-19 pandemic, I think RTE will come out on the right side of that.
All right. Well, listen, Kieran, thank you very much indeed. Kieran Mullooly, I appreciate you coming on the air. Thank you very much indeed. All right. I want to get your calls on this as well. Let us know what you think. Are RTE on the right side of history, generally speaking? I at this very moment in time, that would be a difficult question for you to answer. You're probably going to say no, of course not. We still don't know the answers. And by the way, you're not going to find out tomorrow either, or the next day. Although more might come out. We don't know. And I hope not for RTE's sake. And I would suggest that if there's anything else to come out, you let it out quick. You don't drip feed it out in 3 or 4 weeks. That's going to be a bad thing to do. That'll be death by 1,000 cuts, as somebody in the government mentioned today. So if there is anything else bad, they should bring it out now, while it's hot, so to speak, and let's get it all out in the wash and we can all talk about it. But from a point of view of the Oireachtas Committee, that's going to take months. That could take 6 to 7 months before we get all the answers that we need and find out exactly what went wrong in RTE. What went so terribly wrong that they misled the general public. Yes, you can talk about Ryan Tubridy. And by the way, can I just say, I'm sure Ryan Tubridy is having a very bad week. He's not on radio. It's a passion that he genuinely loves, and I know that feeling. I would be very disappointed if I wasn't on radio, because I have a passion for it. There was a short period of time, going back about 15 years ago, where I was off radio for a short period of time, and it killed me, because every day I'd wake up and I'd have all these stories in my head and all these things I wanted to say. It's like a disease when you've been on radio. And you have this, it is power. There is no doubt about it. It's not that I'm power hungry or anything like that. But there's the power of knowing what you say a lot of people listen to. Right at this very moment in time, for example, the equivalent people listening to me maybe is something like a full Crow Park or a half full Crow Park. I don't know, somewhere around that. I know we have a good audience at night. We have the biggest slice of the nighttime pie, that's for sure. We know that. So I know a lot of people are listening. Now, you don't have to believe everything I say. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You're welcome to come on the air and challenge every single thing I say. And I'm happy to see people do that. I've often changed my mind listening to people. But it is a passion. And I'd say Ryan misses that right now because he does say that he has a passion for radio. So it is a difficult time for him. I'm not, if for any second, forgiving what he'd done. That's not up to me. That's up to you. You're the taxpayer. You're the licence fee payer. If it was me in that situation, it'd be none of your business technically because I work in the private sector. I don't work for the public. You're not paying my wages. My boss is. The advertisers are. But for Ryan Tubridy, of course, you're paying his wages. So he has a duty and a responsibility to be honest. He's admitted that he was wrong. He has admitted that it was an oversight on his behalf, that he should have checked it and he should have he should have corrected it. But he didn't. But will you forgive him? Will you forgive RTE? But that's the wider question is, RTE in general, is it worth the 160 quid a year? 40 cent a day. James was talking to me today. He's an elderly man. He doesn't have to pay the licence fee, but he pays it anyway because he believes it's worth the 40 cent a day and he wants to support it. And don't come on the radio and just have a go at RTE for the sake of it. We know this is bad. It's easy to come on and just have a go, isn't it? That's an easy thing to do. I have people come on, I never watch RTE. Never. Did you see the Late Late Show last week? They had that bleeding needle on it. I go, okay, you've just told me you've watched it. It was like years ago when I used to work for the Chris Barry Show, when I started radio first, back in the late 1990s. And I was a roving reporter for the Chris Barry Show. And I'd go out into Temple Bar and get beaten up every now and again with a microphone in my hand. But I'd go over to people and I go, how you doing? And they go, yeah, who are you working with? And I go, 90 FM. That's who I was working with at the time. The Chris Barry Show. And they go, wouldn't listen to him. And I go, would you know? No, wouldn't listen to him. Arsehole, wouldn't listen to him. Did you hear him talking to that girl last week? I'm going, why are you telling me this? Because of course they listen. So you do watch RTE. You watch it to give out about it even, but you watch it. And there's some wonderful programming in RTE. There's some awful programming in RTE, but there is some wonderful programming in RTE. Look at all the revelations over the last 20 years between nursing homes, children being abused in creches. All that was exposed by Primetime. The Catholic Church, exposed by RTE, by Primetime. Most of it by Primetime. RTE Investigates. RTE's Newsroom. So yeah, you can have a go at RTE, as some people did today during COVID. Yeah, maybe they shouldn't have gone on at 6 o'clock every day and told us 4 people died or 10 people died. That was unnecessary, particularly towards the latter stages of COVID-19. Maybe Claire Byrne shouldn't have had people, knitting masks on the air and people in bubbles. All a bit thick, to be honest with you. I couldn't agree with you more. But a lot of good stuff came out of that too. Anyway, the number is 087 188 0008. 087 188 0008. So this is not, I can't listen to Scareburn. I've heard that nickname being used, yes. Anyway, 087, she's a good broadcaster, by the way. She's a very intelligent woman. 087 188 0008. The question is it worth the licence fee? Let me go to Connor. Connor, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Hey, Niall, how are you doing? I doubted Ryan now had to work for Chris Barry and get beaten up.
No, he probably won't, no.
Ryan being a Blackrock lad and, wasn't his grandfather one of the heads of RTE and he's drenched in Fianna Fáil. That's
right. He comes from a political family, yes.
Oh, yeah. But no, I heard you interviewing him before. And I don't know, it came across that Ryan is kind of, what's the big deal here, No, nobody's saying that. Nobody is saying that.
All that was said was, it is a big deal. Of course it's a big deal. Because people misled the general public. Be it RTE, be it Ryan, should have brought it to the attention, and he's apologised for that. I did say that I've met him a couple of times, and as a person, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. Oh, no, of course he is a nice guy and he and he plays a blinder for a toy show, but ultimately he doesn't really care. Like, even in 2009 with Savage Cuts, wasn't he? No, I'm not taking a cut.
Well, I do vaguely remember something about that, yeah. But he did, well, supposedly, we were led to believe he did take a cut. But it seems now he didn't actually take a cut because he got his wages topped up. Exactly.
Just a pure arrogance. I'm not, but I mean, he is. He's just part of, I'm not, of course, going down the road of conspiracy theory, whatever, but I mean, he's just, totally born into this and kind of whatever, Like, this be a storm in a teacup for a week or two and it'd be grand, You
think it'll just all blow over and go away? I don't know, Conor, if I would have as much faith in that happening as you seem to have. I don't think it's going to go away too quickly, particularly for Ryan Tubridy. I don't think it's going to go away too quickly because it'll take a lot for him to be forgiven by the taxpayer.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of financially, I think Ryan is okay. If it doesn't blow over, he's kind of,
well, we don't know. We don't know his financial circumstances. Don't get me wrong, he's paid very well, but people live by their means. So we don't know his financial circumstances. But I'm sure he's all right for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure he's not suffering. I'm sure he doesn't have the price of a pint of milk, like, you know what I mean? I'm hopefully he doesn't. I wouldn't like to see anybody down their knees financially.
I know. But no, just another point anyway. It seemed that Irish neutrality has totally come off the headlines anyway, conveniently enough for me, Hal Martin and the boys anyway.
Well, yes, there's always a distraction. Yeah, there's always a distraction, Conor, isn't there? Always a distraction.
Yeah. The old Chinese balloons, what?
I don't think that was intentional, Conor, to be honest with you. I just think that's the general public and the news that we like to consume, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you got to decide which is more important. I know for me, neutrality, or whether you want it or not, is an important issue, an extremely important issue, which is long term. This issue, as you rightly said, will be resolved very quickly. Anyway, Conor, thank you for that. Let me go to Angela. Angela, how are you doing?
Hi, Niall. How are you?
Good. Angela, it's a difficult one. I mean, we can't deny something's gone horribly wrong. We can't deny there's maybe a bit of greed involved.
I'm on this show now, Bjorn.
Yeah, you're going on in a second, Keith. Just hang on. Sorry, go ahead. People just like to talk in the background there. You can't deny things have gone horribly wrong.
I'd say horribly wrong, right? Okay. So he took a pay cut.
He didn't really. Yeah, he didn't really take a pay cut.
Yeah, but he got paid in another way.
Yeah.
I think anyone who turned around and said they wouldn't do the same is full of crap.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you probably say that you wouldn't.
No, hold on. No, hang on. I would. I'd absolutely take it.
Yeah.
But the difference is, hang on, but I'm not responsible. My salary, which is nowhere near Ryan Tubridy's, can I just point out, my salary is not on public record. My salary doesn't get printed in the newspaper every single year, and I'm not being paid by the taxpayer.
No. But you know what? At the end of the day, with that kind of a thing, I don't think it's anyone's business what he's paid, what any of them are paid.
That's nonsense. Angela, you're talking to her. No, you might as well say a politician, what he's being paid is none of your business. Of course it's your business. You're paying their wages. You pay tax.
But the difference between a politician and Ryan Tubridy is a politician is meant to be looking out for my welfare.
And so is Ryan Tubridy, and so are the presenters on RTE. Because, firstly, they're on the most popular radio station, most popular television station in the country by the very nature of the public service and the public service broadcaster. So they will always be the incumbent. So by the very nature of that, they have quite a substantial amount of power.
Now, what do they always say? Never believe anything the media say. Right?
Well, you believe some of it.
Don't they say that a lot of the time? Don't be listening to the media.
But people do.
He's media. But people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people do, and a lot of people don't. Right? But my whole thing is to hear people saying, shut down RTE. It's like, for God's sake. And as you said at the start of the show, I do laugh when someone says, oh, I haven't listened to or watched RTE in 15 years. If you say that, you're full of sugar.
I don't believe I don't believe people who say that.
I don't believe anyone could ever say in 15 years they haven't watched RTE.
I mean, I give out about the
RTE.
Late Late Show all the time, you know, but
Yeah.
to give out about it, I have to watch it. So,
Well, you see, I record everything, right? I don't tape it, I record it. And I fast forward it, right?
yeah.
I am a massive Fair City fan. And if Fair City wasn't going, there'd be a lot of jobs that are gone for a lot of people there as well.
I mean, myself and a friend of mine used to have bets on each week. You could nearly put a bet on with Paddy Power as to who the guest on the Late Late Show would be. If it wasn't Mario Rosenstock, it was.
Oh, Jesus.
He's God love him. He's great. By the way, he's a very entertaining man, but not on a regular basis on the Late
No,
Late Show.
it's like,
If it wasn't,
you always know.
you always
You
know one of
always
them.
know someone's backed out.
Daniel
Like,
O'Donnell.
Mario
Daniel
McCall.
O'Donnell. Yeah.
And Daniel,
Daniel O'Donnell.
I hope with Patrick Keelty that they do kind of ramp it up a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
The old Late
you
Late
know,
Show
I
was
think-
great, by the way. Do you remember the days when Gay would be on and he'd keep all the guests behind the desk so they'd all be on together? And then he'd throw out a social question, say if it was about something in the news, and he'd go to the audience and people would call in on the phone. These are the days, by the way, before all the technology we have nowadays. So much
and the
easier to do
thing
it.
is, you never knew who was going to be on.
Yeah.
You never knew. Now they announce on a Thursday who's going to be on.
And I think that's
And the
such a bad
funny thing
idea.
is,
Such a bad
it's
idea.
a very bad idea. Only ever once in a while would they kind of go, right, you know, back in the Gaybo day, you know, when Archbishop Casey or whatever, when it was somebody massive, they'd go, right, listen who we've got. But now I think they're actually, you know, killing themselves by nearly
Okay, you should
saying,
be their new
"Who's
marketing
going to be
manager,
on?"
Angela. Now, back to RT's situation at the moment.
Yes.
Director General, gone. Ryan, gone for the moment, that's for sure. He's their biggest star.
Yeah.
A lot of unhappy staff, a lot of embarrassed presenters today calling out their wages on the air. Must be very embarrassing for them, you know, because it looks bad because they're earning so much money. You know,
Why is it embarrassing for them if it's public knowledge anyway?
because it is. No, hang on. It is embarrassing when you're RTE and you're talking to the majority of your listeners who are earning less than 40 grand a year or 45 grand a year than the average wage. And you're sitting there and you're saying, I earn 400,000 a year or 350,000 a year. That is embarrassing. Because you don't want to come across as an arsehole. And that's just it. Like, so it is embarrassing to say that. I'm not saying they don't deserve the money. You know, that's what presenters got. But I'm just saying it's embarrassing.
But why would it be embarrassing when it's public knowledge anyway what they're getting?
Yeah, it's printed and it's public knowledge, but it's not. It's not the kind of thing you say. It's not the kind of thing you say yourself on the air. It'd be embarrassing.
No, it's not. But the other thing about it is, sometimes I genuinely do. If you compare their wages to a lot of wages, let's say in the States or the UK, like with yourself, Niall, you're not getting paid half of what everyone else is getting paid. And that's not right either. Like, people think that, and I'll bring it back to Fair, people think that actors in Fair City get mountains of money. What they don't realise is when they're not on the screen, they're on the dole. You know?
Mm-hmm.
They don't get mountains of money. So, like, the way I look at this is it's a storm in a teacup. Another thing that is absolutely annoying me is the fact that because of what has happened, now we don't know whether he's been told to take a week off.
He has been
or
told.
he's
He has been told to
Yeah.
take time off. Yes.
Why?
Well,
I don't
Angela, if you don't know the answer to that question, you need to examine yourself, right?
No,
he's just
do know.
apologised because he's wrong in what
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
know. I do know. But what I don't understand is, once again, it's somebody in the public eye who's been accused of something, who has come out and apologised, and suddenly, boom, they're
But
gone.
yeah,
Or
but the
something
problem
like that.
is it's not resolved, and that's maybe why the board of executives said, "Listen, Ryan, stay the you know what away just for the time being," because it's not resolved. There's still so many questions to be answered. Now,
But
maybe
he's
next
come out
week,
with
I don't know.
apology.
Maybe next week he'll appear back on the radio, mea culpa,
I hope he
and talk to
hope
his
he is.
audience. I would like to think that maybe he could talk to his audience, and then it's entirely up to them whether they want to forgive him or not.
Yeah, and that's what I would have done. I would have turned around, let him go on today, give him 15 minutes or half an hour.
I'm sure they will.
Let people come in, ring in, have a chat with him, and be honest.
Oh, I'd love to talk to. I would love Ryan to ring in now. I'd love to talk to him.
You know,
because I think he's a I genuinely think I put in the paper during the week because the paper covered one of my tweets, and what I said was he's genuinely a nice guy, and it's up to the general public as to whether they want to forgive him, and for his role, what they believe his role in this is. Now I don't know whether they believe it's greed, whether they believe it's underhand, or whatever they believe it is.
Well,
whatever.
if it's greed. Isn't everyone greedy?
Well, yeah, I just said I wouldn't refuse the money, but in saying that, I'm not working for RTE, so I'm not accountable in that sense.
I know.
If there's anyone listening out there that wants to pay me an extra 70 grand a year, I'll happily take it off your hands, and I'll take the arm off it as well.
I'll give you an extra 70 grand.
But hang on, stay there for a second. Let me go to Keith as well. Keith, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Niall, how are you getting on?
I'm grand.
Yeah, Niall, let's be honest with you. Look at it, you have to sort of call a spade a spade. It's RTE again.
Yeah.
You know, and the people from the local butcher down the road, you're getting a bit of meat even today. There's another smoke screen to make them go more bigger after stepping out in the late day. And my personal opinion is, I think the Criminal Asset Bureau were there to do a job, and they should be investigating RTE. But brown envelopes getting handed out everywhere.
Well, there's not brown envelopes getting handed out everywhere. That's not true, Keith. And there is no suggestion at this moment in time of any criminality involved on the part of RTE in relation to this. A side deal is a side deal, or a secret deal that nobody else was told about, which is immoral. There is no doubt. Well, hang on, Keith. We have to be respectful here, okay? Is immoral, but there's no suggestion that RTE were involved in criminality.
They're not. Well, personally, I think the whole lot of RTE should be dismantled anyway.
Right.
And the goings under them.
Okay. Just from the top down. Gone. Everybody. Out the door. But that's not really the answer, is it? I mean, there's good people working in RTE. They're not all involved in it.
No, I wouldn't say all. But what I'm saying is the majority of them, they're only reporting what they want to report or what they're told to report. Yourself and Ben Scanlon now have gripped. Have done more for the people on the airways than anyone has.
Well, we're different. Okay, there's no doubt about that. We report from a different point of view than other people. But in saying that, you know, RTE are meant to be impartial. I would agree with you in some sense that maybe there is an agenda by times and they seem quite government-led, but I wouldn't say all of the time. I do believe in a lot of occasions when we look at, say, the Primetime Investigates programme, it's a wonderful programme. It's a really good programme. When you look at, for example, Keith, take this week alone, RTE and their handling of this particular story about themselves. You have to take your hat off to them. They're not holding back. They're investigating themselves.
Okay, Niall. Why is RTE not going on about the 64 children missing since the Ukrainian war went on in Tuesday? There's nothing about it. That's why people are annoyed and fed up when they see the likes of Tubridy coming out and they're saying this is a smoke screen. Do you know what I mean? They can't blame people now.
I know, and that's a shocking story. I read it in the Irish Times the other night. It's a shocking story about teenagers being sent out and selling sex, essentially, about teenagers being abused. It's a shocking, shocking story, and I've seen the report in the Irish Times. And Tusla needs to be fully investigated. And yes, we will be having a programme about it. But and by the way, RT did mention it on the news. Unfortunately, you are right. This has distracted people, and that's not a good thing either.
No. Well,
because you're right. That story is much more important. Much more important.
In my eyes, and from the local butcher that's down there in our local area, East Wally, he must be there 70 years or whatever. Mm. You know them yourself. And the first thing he said when you walk, it's smoke screens to cover up the hate speech laws and everything else. Bring it all onto Tubridy and they're not talking about anything else.
Well, I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but you are right. It's a distraction.
Yes. Thank you very much, Niall, and thanks for the work you've been doing. You have to take your heart yourself and Ben, because otherwise people don't get to know the truth. People been watching RTE for so long, and, you know, as I said, it's just a smoke screen for everything else is going on around the world. You know, mass migration coming into the city. The north side is destroyed. There's nothing in D4. You won't do a programme on it. You know, so...
Well, I suppose everybody has a different view and everybody has a different viewpoint of what should and shouldn't be in the news. But I'm not going to disagree with you in relation to that particular story that was in the Irish Times about Tusla. It's a shocking, shocking story, Keith. I have to move on. Let me go to, and I'm not trying to silence you, and that certainly, I just need to, so many people want to get involved in this. I have to take a break, have I? John, I'm going to take a break just before I come to you, okay? Stay there, John. Stay there, Angela, if you want to. The number's 087 188 0008. That's 087 188 0008. Do you believe RTE is fit for purpose?
Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan. Call us now on 0818 942 105.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Classic Hits at Work.
With Trina Mara.
Hey, it's Trina. All this week on the show, we have a brilliant prize. Want to send you to the Galway Film Fleadh to see Let the Canaries Sing, which chronicles Cyndi Lauper's stardom. You'll get to attend the closing night film and gala reception afterwards. There's a Q&A with Cyndi herself, and we'll also throw in accommodation at the Victoria Hotel. Be here to win weekdays from 10 till 2.
Classic Hits at Work with Trina Mara.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
60 years ago, history was made when President John F. Kennedy visited Ireland. This summer, EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum, celebrates the legacy of his homecoming visit with a new exhibition. Relive the pomp and ceremony surrounding JFK's visit and uncover the cultural and political significance of his 4-day trip through photos, interviews and contemporary documents. Homecoming, JFK in Ireland, on now at EPIC. Visit epicchq.com.
232. 3 simple numbers. But for Audi, they signify more. More innovation and excitement. An invitation to experience progress you can feel. And a shift in mindset to greater expectations. Like the competition edition on the Audi A4 and A5 S-Line models. All part of our 232 range. Discover how progress makes you feel in a 232 Audi. And book a test drive today.
In the Phoenix magazine, Leo Varadkar's Russian Roulette. Profile horse racing's Paddy Dunican. Pacifist silenced at Marston's forums. Youngblood RTE's Louise Duffy. And Simon Harris's leadership timing. Also in the Phoenix, Una Healy's transformation, Jenny Keen's sexual revolution, Catherine Marston's €1.85 million grant, Liam Cunningham's supporting role, AIB shareholders set for profit bonanza, and Dave McCardle's court case. It's all on the Phoenix in shops and at thephoenix.ie.
At Isle Burn Experience, explore the underground world on a guided tour. Witness birds of prey in free flight. Or take a walk with a hawk. Visit our farm shop to sample our award-winning Baron Gold cheese and homemade fudge. See our woodland come to life in our biodiversity walk. Discover it all at Isle Burn Experience. Book now at isleweburnexperience.ie.
You're listening to Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
With Recruit.ie. Download our job search app today. Search for Recruit.ie in your smartphone app store.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
All right, keep texting, keep WhatsApping. The number's 087 188 0008. John, how are you doing?
Not so bad. Listen, you got a bit of a scoop there tonight. You actually were engaging there with the president of the Ryan Tubridy fan club, and her name was Angela.
Oh, all right, okay. So, hi, President. Hi, how are you?
You're very welcome. Hi, John. So, John, if you want
the Ryan Tubridy Appreciation Society. Yeah.
I mean, I'm absolutely flabbergasted that she thinks. She described this as a storm in a teacup, right? Well, that's some bloody teacup, like with the amount of money that's involved. It's a slap in the face to every poor pensioner out there that's trying to get that doesn't yet qualify, or that's on disability, doesn't qualify for a free television licence. And this guy was getting money, hand over bloody fist, like, I mean, 75,000. I mean, it's a total betrayal of people that are actually going out as if they hadn't enough bloody bills to pay for this bloody licence fee to keep the like of him and the lifestyle, and all the others are up there. This has been going on for years, and it's about time the bloody shit hit the fan, because going back to Jerry Ryan with the £1 million a year, going back to Pat Kenny's huge salary, and all this mantra we are told, oh, they're stars, They're not stars. I mean, stars mean Hollywood, maybe that comes to mind. We're talking about stars. But this idea that, they'll be poached, so they'll go somewhere else, leave them go. But you see, it never happened because they didn't have to go. They got the big bloody money here, which they weren't worth in the first place. They were built up to this alter ego that these are superstars. They're not superstars. And I tell you something, Tubridy wouldn't get a job in a shithouse.
Well, that's not. Well, hang on. With the great respect, John, that's not fair comment. Up to the point that this all came out, some people liked him, some people didn't. I mean, that's the way it is with every presenter.
I never liked him.
That's fine. That's fine. We're like Marmite. Some people hate me as well, right? And everything that I represent. That's fine too. I accept that. But but the people who do like me listen to me, thankfully, and I get wages. All right. So that's just the way it works. So the point is, Ryan Tubridy, and I've said it before, don't mind, get me wrong, I have a pop at him every now and again on the air, over the years. I've slagged him off and had the crack slagging off the Late Late Show. But as a human being and as a person, he's a nice guy. I've met him a few times. Hang on, John. He's a really nice, genuine man. Now, what he did is wrong. Okay, I know you will. But hang on. I'm not like Angela. I'm not the fan club. I'm just saying what he did was wrong. He's apologised for it. Now that's up to you and Angela and everybody else to decide if you want to accept that apology.
Well, I'll be honest with you, his days are numbered. He will not be back in radio again. I believe the staff that he shared the same space with, don't want him anymore. You can imagine now the conversations that are going in families tonight that work in RT inside.
I know, and I know that's a bitter pill to swallow for people who worked around him, particularly those who might have been working, on a lower wage of 40 or 50 grand, to know that he was getting twice their salary just as an extra side deal.
That's what I said. Not alone had the public been betrayed, but the staff had been betrayed by the mandarins in RT. There's no way back for this guy like him. I couldn't see how anyone would tune in and listen to him. He couldn't explain.
But they will. But hang on, people. I have seen presenters do worse than that on radio in this country. Sorry, Angela.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Of course they're going to tune in. Of course they are. And John, I don't know where you think who what do you think their wages should be?
Well, they definitely shouldn't be the amount of money that they're being paid for, crying out loud. I mean, Joe Duffy has huge money there. Joe Duffy answers, no, I've been on Joe Duffy loads of times. As somebody calling tells him tonight now that I'm saying something here, I won't be left on again. Go ahead on. You take a chance. The thing is, he's an hour and a half on every day. And now, he's earning a hell of a lot more than you for an hour and a half. There was a time you were doing 2 hours.
He's on an awful lot more than me for a quarter of the amount of work.
Sorry.
That's the point I'm making.
What I have to laugh at is, John, do you think, what time is Joe Duffy on? I don't listen.
1:45 till 3 o'clock. Or no, till 1:45 to 2 o'clock.
An hour and a quarter.
Do you think that he arrives in? Do you think that he arrives in at half 12?
I believe he does. I do believe he arrives in shortly just before the show and goes home after it. I don't know now for sure, but I heard that he does.
But their wages are nothing compared to a lot of wages throughout the world.
Real people, real opinions, Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic